How about those potato chips where you needed scissors to get them open? I'm like, really? It was almost a bloodbath back there with all of us at lunch. But I did try to drop a little idea with Chris Storr for the next season of The Bear. I suggested that Carmi take up a relationship with an unstable female sommelier. Because we all know it always works out when sommeliers and chefs date. It's like no drama, perfect television. So, all right, Chris, it's here. If you need a consultant, you know where to find me. Yeah, so being a sommelier is something that I know a little, two or three things about. I never imagined when I was coming up that was the career that I was going to do. Both my parents are in the restaurant business. They're from the Fiji Islands. I was born and raised in Monterey, California. My parents migrated to the US in the 70s, and then they somehow landed in Monterey, California, where I was born in a working class family. Loved watching food television, but again, it was never sort of a career path that I thought I would pursue, certainly not wine. I actually found out my 8th grade teacher, his son was going to UC Davis, and they had a wine class, and I just thought that was the craziest thing ever. I actually did not discover wine until I started working at a restaurant in Monterey, California called Montrio, and the manager there was studying to become a Master Sommelier. I mean, it's almost like my head exploded that you could actually have a job tasting wine all day. But this particular restaurant had a very forward-thinking wine training program, and that's how I found out about the Master Sommelier program and decided to pursue it myself. But I didn't just pursue it. I pursued it as if my life depended on it. In a way, it kind of did. So my parents had a business when I was growing up, a little grocery store, a little Indian grocery store. I worked there from 12 years old. And going to college was a high priority for both me and my brother, but unfortunately when it came time to go to college, there was just no money. They had some financial difficulties. There was a couple of recessions in there, the Gulf War, Fort Ord, which a number of our customers came from Fort Ord. The military base had closed. So it wasn't a great time to be sending a kid off to school at $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year. So I decided to stay home and earn money waiting tables to pay for college, and that's where I decided to go get this job. And in between, what I realized is, hey, I kind of like this wine stuff, and if I can become a Master Sommelier, a test with only about a 3% pass rate, there's only about 36 Master Sommeliers in the country at the time, sounds like a solid plan, then I could avoid getting myself into student debt. And so in lieu of student debt, I decided to pursue the Master Sommelier program. But I pursued it with such a passion and vigor that it was the only thing I could see. I recently saw Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary on Netflix where he was talking about how he visualized becoming Mr. Universe. And he had these posters above his bed, and he could just see it. And I have to tell you, that really spoke to me. I would write out my name, Alpana Singh, Master Sommelier. This is at 19 years old, not even technically old enough to drink, but I knew that I was going to become a Master Sommelier, and perhaps if not the youngest, then one of the youngest, and nobody could talk me out of it because I didn't have a backup plan. And so for 7 years, it's the first thing I thought about when I woke up. It's the last thing that I thought about when I went to bed. And it was with that intensity that I pursued it, and I ended up moving to Chicago, passing the test at the age of 26. And then, all of a sudden, at the age of 26, I'm like, okay, I'm a Master Sommelier now. Now what do I do? And I recently saw a documentary with Michael Phelps when he retired from swimming. He talked about falling into a little bit of a depression. And I knew acutely what he was speaking of, because that thing that drove you every day, that got you out of bed, that passion, right? It's gone. You've done it. You've climbed this mountain. And at 26, you're just kind of going, I got a whole life left here. So thankfully, somebody had told me, Jay James, who's a fellow Master Sommelier, said, you got to find that next hill. You got to find that next mountain. I said, how do I do that? He said, it will find you. Just have to be patient. So I ended up moving to the corporate office to Let Us Entertain You, and those were some really hard years for me because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I kind of flailed a little bit. Ended up doing the TV show, which I really enjoyed doing, but in the back of my head, I knew that TV really wasn't something that I could sustain as, you know, a long-term solution. It was just something that I did for fun, and I really enjoyed doing that show. And then I got an opportunity to open my first restaurant, the Boarding House, and I got into that. And then came the second, and then came the third, and then I sort of transitioned into this role of restaurateurship, and which is a challenge into of itself. And then I turned 40. I'm now closer to 50 than I am 40. And I had mentioned that I was at the Welcome Conference a few years ago, and I was sort of in this weird place in my life where I really wasn't sure what the next step was going to be. And I realize now, as I went on to open Alpana last summer, that I have now transitioned from a place of what Arthur Brooks, who is a brilliant writer, speaker, commentator, during the first 25, 30 years of our career, we have something that's called fluid intelligence. We're really good at sort of brainstorming, coming up with ideas, being a maverick. We're learning. It comes easy. But then what happens is you transition into this later end of your life, the second half, and it's now moving into something called crystallized intelligence. And so one of my goals at Alpana is to have a very forward-thinking wine education program. The majority of our staff members are studying to become a sommelier themselves. And that's really important to me because I wanted to give back that same platform that allowed me to have the career that I had. But what I discovered as I moved into that form of fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence is that I got reminded what it was like to have that drive into that pursuit when I see it with my staff members, when they go for their first level, when they pass their WSET, when they discover a new grape variety. And all of a sudden I was reminded of what it was like to be that 25-year-old with that dream and that passion and just that love of chasing something. And unfortunately, we live in a society where we're not taught to dream past 40. You know, we're sort of told that to dream and to have goals and to have these desires and pursuits is something that's left for the young, right? You know, we have kids that go off to college. Well, think about what you want to be in life. You know, the sky's the reach. You know, think about what you want to do. But when was the last time we told somebody on their 50th birthday, what do you dream about? What are you excited about? What stars are you going to continue to reach for? And I realized that what I was missing was that dream of that pursuit. And I had forgotten to have a dream. And of course, owning a restaurant is an amazing privilege. You know, being able to have an active hand in shaping somebody's career and being a mentor is an amazing privilege. But somewhere in there, I sort of realized that I got it set in sort of what I call the malaise of middle age. And, you know, I had to think about it for a second. And so a few years ago, my therapist gave me a little project. And my friend, Will the Guide Gadara, set us up perfectly. You got a journal, right? You got this journal. And she gave me this little project. And she said, what I need you to do is write out a perfect life 3 years from now, right? Nobody's going to read it. It's only for you, right? And I said, okay. And so I said, what do I write about? She goes, what does your life look like when you wake up in the morning? What does it look like? What does your house look like? What do you have to do? Where are you going to go? Who do you have to meet? What's your job? What is it that you're doing? You know, if you could wish for anything to happen for yourself, write down what it looks like. And I sat there, and it actually took me a long time to write it. And I did. I said, okay, 3 years from now, I want my house to be gray. I want this, I want that. I want to be able to walk to work. I opened a new restaurant. It's within walking distance of my house. I wanted to be a personal representation of me. I wanted to, I laid out kind of in detail what it was. I get goosebumps thinking about it, but about 5 years later, everything I wrote down, including the gray walls, came true. It's really scary in a good way. And what I also discovered with this project was how much we edit ourselves. We have embedded within us these sort of subliminal messages from society, particularly when we're past the age of 45, because I said it once and I'll say it again, they don't hand out 40 over 40 awards, and I think that needs to change. If somebody from Cranes is here, you're welcome. You know, and so we edit ourselves. We're like, that's not possible. That's never going to happen. Who do I think I am? Like, oh, that's crazy. I don't have the money to do that. And if you cut yourself off in a hypothetical plan, how do you think it's actually going to happen? And what's fantastic about that 3-year number is it's scary doable. It's not some far-fetched thing where, yeah, 10 years from now I want to like cruise the world. 3 years is very doable. So that's my little nugget for you, is to take your journal and write out in perfect detail, in as much color and vision as possible, to write out what your perfect life looks like 3 years from now. And then let's see what happens, right? So you're probably wondering, well, what is my next pursuit? I'm working on a couple things. Some of them are a little personal, so I'm not going to share. But one of them is I really enjoyed getting into the kitchen at Alpana. So I'm a classically trained sommelier, and now at my restaurant, I actually come up with the recipes, right? I write the recipes, I train the staff, you know, it's my food. You know, I get inspiration from all over. And I recently found out that the James Beard Foundation has changed their criteria for emerging chef, where there's no age cap, right? And I thought, well, I was the youngest woman to ever pass the Master Sommelier exam. Wouldn't it be something if I became the oldest rising star chef from the James Beard Foundation? And I certainly don't want to compare myself to being a chef, but wouldn't it be fun to dream? And so that's my message today, is don't give up on your dreams. No matter how old you are, you're never too old to dream. If there's something you want to pursue, give yourself that chance. All right.